Sia Lee is a professional wrestler formerly with WWE, currently with TNA Wrestling. She vlogs her daily life with workouts, hiking, and other outdoor adventures. For the past 3, she's had issues with an enraged neighbor, and she had a scary encounter with him. Take a look.
Nothing's happening. What are you even filming me for?
No, you can't get too close.
Huh?
You can't get too close.
I feel the same way! Exactly this. I feel the same way. I feel the same
That's
way.
my property.
This is my property.
You scare me. You yell me.
You're ugly and you annoy me.
The situation got so bad that Sia installed cameras around her home. Late one night, the man approached her home and what he did was insane. Keep watching. Sia went to court and applied for a protective injunction. At the time of making this video, there has been no update regarding this situation. I hope Sia stays safe. You guys know I'm a wrestling fan and I always like Sia, and I think she's extremely underrated. As for the man, it was noted he has mental health issues. I hope he gets the help he needs. That was disturbing, but this next case takes a much darker turn. A woman from Eastern Asia uploaded this footage to Facebook. She said that for several weeks she had been waking up to find her kitchen completely disturbed. The damage varied: broken plates, chairs knocked to the floor, belongings in disarray. None of it happened while she was awake. It only occurred while she slept. To find out what was behind it, she placed a camera in the kitchen and left it running overnight. The room looks empty when the footage begins. Keep your eye on the dinner table. A spoon sitting on the surface lifts into the air without anything visibly touching it. It hovers for a moment, then falls to the floor. But that's not where it ends. Now watch the white plate sitting close to the table's edge. It begins moving, sliding gradually across the surface as though something is guiding it along. Then it goes over the edge and hits the ground hard, shattering an impact. That alone is terrifying, but viewers going back through the footage noticed something else. Something easy to miss the first time through. In the moments just before the spoon moves, a faint shadow passes briefly through the darkness. It's barely there, and it's gone almost instantly, but it appears seconds ahead of everything else that follows, which raises the question: if something was present in that kitchen before the activity started, does that shadow represent the moment it made its move? Or is it the one detail a staged setup forgot to account for? Renee Wilson is a mother of 3 from Tacoma, Washington. She was 9 months pregnant, and not just pregnant, it was her due date. She had stepped outside her apartment carrying a box with a brand new car seat, her chihuahua walking with her, when 2 pit bulls came at her. She tried to fight them off with her keychain. It did nothing. The dogs took her down. One latched onto her pregnant belly, the other grabbed her left ankle. She was being dragged across the ground and screaming for her life. Her neighbors heard her. One of them ran out, grabbed one of the pit bulls by the scruff of its neck and pulled it back. When it lunged again, he threw it to the ground. He described the moment he reached her.
There's a dog attack. I'm terrified of dogs. They were attacking a pregnant woman.
She was already on the ground when I got there. I grabbed the pit bull by the scruff of its neck and pulled it back. And then it tried to move forward again, so I kind of just threw it down to the ground.
She's like, they bit me on my stomach, And I'm like, oh my gosh, She's like, I'm due today.
Renee was rushed to the hospital. Doctors were concerned enough about the baby that they induced labor on the spot. From her hospital bed, Renee described what was going through her head while it was happening.
Yeah, I thought we were both going to die. I was on the ground and I was being dragged, and that's when he just started biting at my belly and I was screaming for help. In that moment, all I was concerned with was my belly. Once it latched onto my belly, the other dog latched onto my left ankle.
Baby Armani was born perfectly healthy, but Renee's situation didn't improve after the delivery. She remained in the hospital fighting MRSA, a serious antibiotic-resistant infection from the bites she sustained across her body. She showed her injuries on camera.
This side is the one with the 2 big holes in it.
While she was dealing with that, her sister was at home caring for Armani. Renee hadn't had the chance to be a mother to him yet.
I really got to bond with my baby.
I love you, Armani.
After the attack, the dog's owner showed up and collected them. According to police, they had reportedly gotten out through a broken fence. Both were quarantined while an investigation was underway. Renee started a GoFundMe to help cover the medical bills that were piling up. She said it directly. Her neighbors literally saved her life. One of them ran toward the screaming instead of away from it. That decision is the reason both Renee and Armani are still here. In Misty Cliffs, South Africa, a truck plunged down an embankment and crashed onto the road below. The driver managed to climb out, apparently unharmed. According to local residents, the truck's brakes reportedly failed, while workers riding in the back were able to jump clear before the vehicle went over the edge. Residents say this is far from the first crash at the location and have repeatedly warned authorities the road poses a serious danger. This footage is old and its point of origin is unknown. A surveillance camera captured it at night on a street somewhere in Brazil. A woman was riding a bicycle when something occurred that the footage alone doesn't readily explain. The woman came down behind a pole after the bicycle was pulled several meters upward into the air and then dropped back to the ground. On replay, the bicycle appears to rise as though something above it, invisible to the camera, had taken hold of it and pulled it skyward. The specific question the footage leaves open is about the upward trajectory. What force, mechanical or otherwise, produces a vertical pull on a bicycle with a rider still on it? Let me know what you think. In Una, India, a car veered off a mountain road while navigating a curve and plunged into a gorge below. According to reports, the vehicle caught fire after the crash, and both occupants lost their lives. When the footage was later reviewed, what appeared to be an explosion could be seen inside the vehicle just seconds before it went off-road. As of this recording, the exact cause of the incident has not been determined. Isaac and his girlfriend traveled to his aunt's house to look after the property and care for her dog while she was away for a few weeks. The house was old, noticeably so, and filled with antiques throughout. Not long after settling in, Isaac began hearing unexplained sounds coming from the basement at night.
Alright, so this is like really crazy. What that sound?
His initial read on the sounds was straightforward: an old house, humidity, wood contracting and expanding. He also noticed that his aunt had surveillance cameras positioned in every corner of the house.
She's overseas for the week, and she asked me and my girlfriend to come and take a camera. She's watching us right now. Hey, Auntie.
The following night, Isaac was outside. His girlfriend was in the house, alone, when something happened. She heard loud banging from somewhere inside and went to find the source. Nothing was there. Then a door began moving on its own. Days after that, Isaac started noticing that a broom in the basement would fall by itself while he was asleep at night. He decided to stay awake one night and watch for it. Keep an eye on that broom. Isaac went over and looked for any explanation, found nothing that accounted for it. Then it occurred to him that there was a security camera in the living room where the broom kept coming down. He contacted his aunt and asked her to send over all the recordings, including older footage she might have stored. He went through everything and found nothing unusual until he reached one specific clip. That clip stopped him. Isaac and his girlfriend watched the recording together and were shaken by what it showed. The broom falling on its own was already hard to explain. What was harder to explain was a dark figure visible on the opposite side of the room, small, resembling a young boy. After the broom dropped, the figure slowly faded until it was gone. A few days later, Isaac uploaded a video stating he had found something that appeared connected to the events in the house.
So we found something that might explain what happened last night. These tiles are of two children that lived here at some point. Memorialized, yeah. They memorialized him by putting him on a tile on this fireplace, and I swear this is the kid.
Some viewers believe the house is occupied by the spirits of two boys who lived there years ago, attributed to viewer commentary. Others think the house itself is haunted independently, with no connection to specific individuals. The question the footage specifically leaves open is about that figure. It appeared after the broom fell and dissolved before anything else changed, which raises the question of whether its appearance and the broom's fall were connected, or whether two separate things happened in the same frame at the same moment. In Mocha, Dominican Republic, a close call was caught on camera when an apparently damaged truck slammed into a car parked outside a local shop, narrowly missing a pedestrian. According to reports, the incident did not result in any injuries or fatalities, and authorities have yet to release further details. Jennifer lived with her father and her elderly mother, who had been seriously ill for some time. Jennifer was the one caring for her. Her mother passed away on March 23, 2025. A few days before that happened, a surveillance camera recording from inside her mother's room captured something during the night that didn't have an obvious explanation.
Okay.
At midnight on the recording, a quiet female voice appeared to whisper, "Come." The elderly woman raised both her hands and responded, "Okay." Then a second time, a distinct girl's voice was heard saying, "Mama."
Okay.
Jennifer believes the voice belongs to her sister, who died in 2017, attributed to Jennifer. In her view, her sister came to call her mother to join her. Her mother died only a few days after that recording was made. The question the timing raises is specific. The voice appeared on camera days before her mother's death, and her mother responded to it directly.
Okay.
Whether that sequence was coincidence or something else is what the recording doesn't answer. This footage was re-uploaded to TikTok and the original source behind it isn't known. That doesn't make it any less chilling. A mother came home late one evening and left her son's bikes out in the garden before heading inside for the night. Not long after, her security camera sent an alert. When she checked what it had picked up, what she saw in the garden wasn't what she expected to find. Out in the middle of the garden, a tricycle that had been sitting still begins to move with nothing visibly making contact with it. It rolls forward and then comes to a full stop. Then the handlebars rotate and it starts moving again in a different direction. That last part is what sets this apart from a wind explanation. A breeze can push a light object across a surface, but it doesn't steer. Nobody is visible in the footage at any point. The mother said the clip frightened her because the tricycle had been completely stationary before her camera sent the alert. Since the incident, she refuses to go outside after dark. So the real question isn't about the rolling, it's about that handlebar turn. Because what exactly produces a deliberate directional change with no visible contact and no one in the frame? A cafe currently operating in Texas was originally built in 1924 as a pharmacy. The doctor who owned the pharmacy had a dog that accompanied him throughout his daily routine, and the animal spent the majority of its time inside the building. When the pharmacy was eventually converted into a cafe over the decades that followed, employees working there reported a persistent sense that the dog had never really left. Security cameras inside the building have recorded employees and customers being nipped at the ankles or scratched by something that wasn't visible to them at the time. Several staff members, particularly those working in the kitchen, stated on multiple occasions that they had seen a semi-transparent figure resembling a small dog moving through the space, attributed to their accounts. No explanation has been established for the incidents captured on camera or described by staff. The theory has taken hold among those familiar with the cafe that the doctor's dog never left the building, that whatever presence remained after the pharmacy closed has continued to occupy the space. The question the footage specifically raises is about the ankle nipping. Physical contact with something invisible is a different category of event from a visual sighting, and whether the same explanation covers both is what the cameras haven't resolved. In Ufa, Russia, a man came close to being struck by an elevator that began moving upward while he was in the process of stepping inside. According to reports, the elevator had long been malfunctioning and complaints from residents had gone unaddressed. Following the incident, both elevators in the building were taken out of service and authorities opened an investigation. Late one night, a woman named Heather was sitting outside on her front porch with her husband and 2 sons, eating ice cream. Then she saw something that frightened her.
There's like little mosquitoes. They're kind of going on. What? What did you say? What did you say, Mommy? I didn't hear you.
You gotta keep that open so it doesn't get all musty.
Can't tell me it's not good.
Heather whispered to her husband and children that something was scaring her. They had no idea what she was reacting to. She was the only one who could see a semi-transparent woman moving past the front of the house. According to Heather, the figure was dressed in white and resembled a nurse from the 1950s with a face she described as frightening, attributed to her account. The fact that no one else could see the woman unsettled her further. The location added another layer. Heather lives near an abandoned mental hospital that has a reputation for being haunted.
Story. I live about a mile from where Byberry State Hospital used to be. This is one of the, I'm pretty sure, the most notorious mental hospital in the country. A lot of abuse went on there. There was lobotomies performed on patients. There was experiments performed on patients. A lot of them lost their lives because they were just treated so horribly. The conditions that hospital was in was so inhumane, and no human should have ever had to go through what these patients went through, and these people just needed help. It's just very sad. Now, when I was a kid growing up, we used to definitely go in there, and it was really scary. Like, the second you walk on the grounds, you just feel like it's cold, it's not normal, it feels weird. Like, you can tell somebody's watching you. There's underground tunnels underneath, so we used to run around them too, and they used to use those tunnels to transport bodies. I felt my arm grabbed in there once, and
When Heather showed the footage to her father, who had grown up in that same house as a boy, he told her something that reframed everything. According to him, a nurse named Linda had lived in the house next door during the 1950s and had died under circumstances that were never fully explained. Linda had worked at the same abandoned mental hospital nearby. He then said that the semi-transparent figure visible in the recording looked exactly like Nurse Linda. The question the father's identification raises is specific. He recognized the figure without being prompted from footage recorded decades after Linda's death in front of the house where she once lived. What that identification does or doesn't confirm is what the recording leaves open.
Marely, se está cayendo esta mierda. Mierda. $45 segundos. Se rompieron las cosas, Amareli. Mierda.
Ya. Ya, por. Afuera que tenemos. No sale de allá. Hermano, no, afuera es más peligroso, hermano. Por allá. Señores, al puerta 4.
In June 2026, two earthquakes struck Venezuela, 39 seconds apart, magnitudes 7.2 and 7.0. The pair were described as the most powerful to hit the country in more than a century. A state of emergency was declared and international rescue teams were deployed. According to reports, at least 900 people died, thousands more were injured, and approximately 50,000 remained missing. A man moved into a new house, and within a few weeks, strange things began occurring inside it. The noises were the first sign, unusual sounds, especially late at night. He decided to install security cameras to document what was happening. On one particular night, a camera captured something. On a separate night, the living room camera recorded a semi-transparent figure moving through the space. That same night, a camera positioned in the yard picked up another figure outside. A semi-transparent shape resembling a human form appeared briefly and then vanished almost instantly. Over the following days, the intensity of the events increased. Loud knocking and banging sounds began coming from the attic.
I just heard a loud ass banging in the garage while I was pouring my coffee. What the Please do not be something weird. I can't take this shit anymore.
He was frightened and hesitant, but eventually made the decision to go up to the attic and look for himself.
Got up in there and realized there is a light bulb. So I'm gonna show you what I found. If I can make it up here. These are some rickety freaking steps. That is some kind of a box.
In the attic, he came across an old box. He opened it.
Now let's go get the box. All right, let's see what's in there. Oh, is that a... There's shit in there. Okay, dustier now. Okay, there had to be a freaking doll in here. Oh.
Inside were old objects and a doll with no eyes. After that night, whatever had been happening in the house got worse.
Alright, for any of y'all who don't believe that this is real, then I'm just making it up. I'm about to prove it to you. There's nothing up here.
Loud banging erupted from the attic and the attic door shook with force. When he climbed up to investigate, the attic was completely empty. Nothing was there. The question the sequence raises is specifically about the doll. The activity intensified after it was found and opened, which leaves open whether the discovery, the eyeless doll, was connected to what followed, or whether the timing was coincidental and the events would have escalated regardless. In Santa Maria, Brazil, 3 young people narrowly avoided being struck when a pickup truck collided with vehicles stopped in traffic. According to reports, the crash involved at least 5 vehicles in total, and 2 drivers sustained minor injuries. Surveillance camera footage from the entrance of a residential complex recorded late at night. The man who posted the video had noticed something for a while. Every time he came home from work, he had the distinct sense that someone was behind him. When he turned around, there was never anyone there. He decided to pull the surveillance recordings and see what the cameras had been capturing. A figure appeared behind him, then slowly faded out of frame. What exactly it was isn't clear from the footage, but a second camera picked up something else just seconds later, and that was what left him genuinely unsettled. Keep watching. The man went inside and closed his front door. Then a semi-transparent figure appeared in the frame, slowly forming the shape of a woman. The door was closed. The figure passed through it as though the door wasn't there. The man believes what the cameras recorded is the same presence he has been sensing following him on his way home every night, attributed to him. A significant number of people in the comments identified it as a ghost. The question the footage anchors to is specific. The figure didn't stop at the door, didn't open it, and didn't go around it. It passed through a closed physical barrier. Whether that detail is explainable by a camera artifact, a reflection, or something else is what the recording doesn't settle.
आराम से बंदा बच गया है इसमें.
This took place in Kannur, India. A temporary steel bridge collapsed while a truck was crossing it. According to authorities, the vehicle is believed to have exceeded the bridge's weight limit. The driver escaped with minor injuries. Surveillance camera footage from inside a children's bedroom. The child is visible in the recording, awake and playing in his bed. According to the mother, her child is normally asleep at this time of night. On this occasion, he stayed up for no apparent reason and couldn't settle. Watch what happens while he's playing. The child was mid-play when he stopped and directed his attention toward the door, staring at it for an extended period. Then he went back to playing. Shortly after, the door began opening on its own, moving slowly without anyone visible on either side of it. A strange sound was then heard inside the room. The child raised his head immediately when the sound occurred. According to the mother, the voice could be heard saying, "Let me in." The mother was frightened by what she saw when she reviewed the footage and believes the house has become haunted. The question the recording raises is anchored to that voice specifically. A child who was already awake and staring at the door reacted to a sound that his mother identified as words. Whether the audio captured a voice producing recognizable language or something else that she interpreted that way is what the recording doesn't settle on its own. At a level crossing in Futanów, Poland, a vehicle was struck by a train, another accident of a type that continues to occur with notable frequency. According to authorities, the vehicle reportedly experienced an engine failure. No injuries were reported. Security camera footage captured late at night inside a bedroom where three brothers were asleep. They woke up to an unusual sound that appeared to be coming from somewhere near the bedroom window.
What was that, bro?
Nah, bro, chill, bro. Hold it down. Bro, are you serious? That's a germ. Bro, it's coming from like there. Bro, but it's hot. No germ. I don't care. No. No.
After hearing what they described as a frightening scream, the brothers ran out of the room. Two of them had looked toward the window and said a very frightening face appeared on the other side on the glass, attributed to their account. The window is on the 4th floor of the building. The question that detail raises is straightforward. Whatever they described seeing behind that glass was at a height where no person could plausibly be standing. This incident unfolded in Nanning, China. A tire detached from a moving vehicle and struck a nearby shop. Two people who were inside the shop at the time escaped without injury. According to reports, the vehicle's owner subsequently compensated the shop owner. Surveillance camera footage from a parking lot near a shopping center recorded late at night when the lot was closed. Security guards came across something while reviewing the footage that they couldn't account for.
Anytime you get in the light, they disappear. So it's only when that is legit. Yeah, because that is a person walking in the that for sure is something That's so funny.
A white semi-transparent figure moved slowly back and forth across the parking lot. When the image was enhanced, the shape appeared to resemble a human form. The guards had no explanation for what they were looking at. The detail that sits at the center of the footage is the movement itself, back and forth in a closed lot late at night. Whatever the figure was, it wasn't passing through. It was moving in a pattern. Whether that pattern points towards something with a purpose or toward a camera artifact that happens to repeat is what the recording doesn't resolve. It was approximately 3 p.m. Benita was home alone. Her husband was at work. She was in the living room watching TV when a loud noise came from the kitchen. The kitchen security camera was recording at that moment and captured something she couldn't account for. The stove shook violently, lifted, and came crashing back down. Just before it happened, a dark, semi-transparent figure had moved quickly across the opposite side of the kitchen. Benita stated that even if the stove had experienced some kind of malfunction, there's no way it could have moved the way it did without something acting on it, attributed to her. Many viewers believe an unseen entity was responsible and that the figure may be connected to what followed. The question the footage specifically raises is about sequence. The figure appeared before the stove moved, not after, which is what makes the timing difficult to dismiss as coincidence. This happened in Green Bank, Washington. A house exploded after a fire reached approximately 700 pounds of fireworks stored inside the structure. The blast caused damage to neighboring homes. According to reports, 3 firefighters sustained injuries. The cause of the initial fire remains under investigation. Courtney posted footage of a series of unexplained incidents happening inside her home. It started on an ordinary day while she was in the living room. Her baby's car seat began moving on its own. She picked up her phone and started recording what she was seeing.
Literally nothing here. My baby is sleeping. I don't have a remote. It just did its own thing.
Her dog was clearly unsettled, behaving in a way that suggested it was reacting to something neither visible nor audible to anyone watching. Then a few days later, Courtney was folding laundry and listening to a podcast when something else happened. Watch.
I'm gonna give this one lady a chance. We'll see how it goes. And we drive there. It's 2.5 hours away, and it looked exactly like my vision. And immediately in my heart, like I cannot explain the feeling in my heart. Like it just felt warm, and I'm like, this is it. Like this is my vision. And you guys are like, wow, this sounds like such an amazing story. God is good. God is great. He is all the time. But there's more to So fast forward to the wedding day. Fast forward to the wedding day. Prior to the wedding, it says it's going to pour down, storm down that whole.
The dog fixed its attention on the door and started growling. It moved slowly toward the door, cautiously as if something near it was keeping it from going any closer, then retreated and left the room. Moments later, a baby bottle moved and was thrown in Courtney's direction. She grabbed her daughter and got out of the room immediately.
Fast forward to the wedding day. Prior to the wedding, it says it's going to pour.
After everything she had documented, Courtney said she had become convinced the house might be haunted and was seriously considering moving, attributed to her. The question the footage keeps returning to is the dog. Animals can't be coached into a reaction, and whatever the dog was responding to at that door, it responded to it before anything else in the room moved. In the early hours of March 9, 2026, cameras across South Manchester recorded a Volkswagen Golf GTI moving through residential streets at speeds far beyond what any road there is designed for. Inside the car were MYUU Hussein, 20, behind the wheel, and Usman Mahmoud, 23, in the passenger seat. The Golf belonged to Mahmoud. Neither of them was insured to drive it. Police would later describe what followed as one of the most extreme, dangerous driving cases they had ever dealt with. Earlier that same night, the two had pulled into a petrol station. CCTV captured them inhaling nitrous oxide from a balloon before getting back in the car and continuing. They were filming themselves as they drove.
A lot of evidence gathered during the investigation comes from the two men themselves. Several videos on their phones shows Hussein, the driver, zooming in on the speedometer, which clocks speeds of over 100 miles an hour. Footage from the passenger seat shows them running red lights and passing cars at incredible speed. They also brag about inhaling balloons throughout.
At certain points, the car was traveling above 130 miles per hour. In the seconds immediately before the crash, it was recorded at 139 miles per hour. At the same time, Sylvester Abayomi, 50, was on the road heading to work. People who knew him called him Sil. He worked as a delivery driver. That morning was supposed to be ordinary. He had no connection to what Hussein and Mahmoud were doing. He was simply on the same road at the same time. Hussein ran a red light on Kingsway. Sylvester was driving through the junction when the Golf struck his car. The impact was catastrophic. Hussein and Mahmoud did not stop. They kept moving, reversed back down the road and parked nearby. What they had not anticipated was that Hussein's Apple Watch had registered the crash and automatically placed an emergency call, which meant everything they said to each other afterward was being recorded.
Hello?
The
owner of this Apple Watch was in a serious car crash and is not
In that recorded conversation, the two discussed leaving the scene, getting rid of evidence, and claiming the car had been stolen, confirmed from the recording. CCTV in the area then showed them pulling nitrous oxide canisters out of the back of the car. All of this was taking place while Sylvester Abayomi was fatally injured nearby. Police tracked Hussein through the Apple Watch. When officers located them, both ran in separate directions. Both were caught and arrested shortly after. In court, Judge Nicholas Dean Casey described the driving as deliberate risk-taking carried out apparently for the thrill of it, attributed to the judge. He stated the footage documented a sustained and escalating pattern of dangerous conduct over a prolonged period, with speeds approaching 140 miles per hour on roads with a 30-mile-per-hour limit. Hussein pleaded guilty to causing death by dangerous driving, causing death by driving while insured, and failing to provide a specimen. He was sentenced to 11 years and 8 months. Mahmoud pleaded guilty to aiding and abetting causing death by dangerous driving and aiding and abetting causing death by driving while uninsured. He received a sentence of 12 years and 9 months. Police stated this was believed to be one of the first convictions in the UK where a passenger had been found guilty of aiding and abetting causing death by dangerous driving. A family member spoke about what Sylvester's loss had meant.
Nothing. It'll never go away. My spark's different. It's not. And it doesn't matter because it'll never be the same anyway. And this pain I feel won't go away. My Syl's passed away in the car when they could have gone over to him just to make, I don't know whether he was awake, shocked and then gone. I don't know, I'll never know. But they could have gone to be with him so he wouldn't be on his own. But they didn't even do that.
His partner Denise said he was on his way to work, an ordinary, hardworking man who should have driven home that morning. The detail that defined how the case unfolded was the Apple Watch. Hussein and Mahmoud believed they had time to construct a story and remove evidence. What they didn't know was that the watch had already made the call and the recording had already started. The device that documented their survival also documented everything they said and did while Sylvester Abayomi was dying. Jacqueline moved into a new house with her daughter in 2025. About a month after settling in August of that year, the home's security cameras recorded something during an otherwise routine afternoon. Jacqueline was upstairs taking a shower on the second floor while her daughter was down in the kitchen. Then something happened.
Blowing off steam. But now at the casino, she's playing to avenge Paul's death. She lures Victor into a trap, letting him gain his confidence, win a few hands just to see what his tendencies are. But then she goes for the throat.
Within 4 hours, Sally has cleaned Victor out, winning the entire $100,000.
Frequently in a poker game like this, those stakes are so high, emotions are so high, often these disputes are carried away from the poker table. You would become so angry that...
The girl felt something grab her arm. She ran upstairs to her mother immediately. According to Jacqueline, her daughter was completely frightened and told her something grabbed her arm with force, attributed to Jacqueline's account. When Jacqueline looked at her daughter's arm, she found a red mark on it. She pulled up the security camera footage to see what the cameras had recorded while she was in the shower. What the footage showed was objects moving on their own and being thrown directly toward her daughter.
Confidence when if you have
$100,000.
The red mark is the detail that sits at the center of this footage. Because it's physical, a frightened child can be explained. Objects moving on camera can be questioned, but a visible mark on skin is something you can see and photograph. Whether what left that mark has an explanation the footage can support is the question the recording leaves open. On July 4th, 2022, security cameras inside a fireworks warehouse in Harris County, Texas, recorded 3 men entering the store just before 10:30 p.m. Nothing about their arrival made them stand out at first. Then one of the men, wearing a number 90 jersey, picked up a firework from an end cap display and carried it into the middle of an aisle. Other shoppers were in the same area, browsing the shelves with no indication of what was about to happen. He glanced over his shoulder, lit the fuse, and ran. The firework went off in the middle of the store. Sparks scattered across the floor, and people in the aisle jumped back and moved in every direction. The location mattered enormously here. This was a warehouse stocked with fireworks products throughout, and a fire spreading through that inventory carried the potential for a significant chain reaction. The situation was genuinely dangerous from the moment that fuse caught. Some customers moved toward the exits. Others did the opposite. They moved toward the burning firework and attempted to stamp it out. For a stretch of seconds, it wasn't clear whether they'd succeed. The sparks kept moving and the firework continued burning on the floor. Then just before the fire could reach additional products on the shelves, someone extinguished it. That intervention stopped what could have become a much larger event. While all of this was unfolding, the 3 men reportedly stole approximately $200 worth of fireworks from the store and walked out. That figure attributed to reports. One of the suspects was identified as Alex Herrera, 28, who was subsequently charged with arson. The other 2 men had not been located at the time of reporting. What the footage documents is a decision made in a crowded fireworks warehouse with other customers standing nearby. Someone lit a live firework, dropped it on the floor, and ran. The only thing that prevented the situation from becoming significantly worse was the response of the people still inside, who moved toward the fire instead of away from it. Keep watching because this next clip will shock and terrify you. On March 15, 2017, security cameras inside Noah's Ark Companion Animal Hospital in Franklin, North Carolina, documented an ordinary workday turning into something entirely different. Staff members were at their desks in the business office with 4 dogs resting nearby in the same space. 4 employees typically worked in that area. At that specific moment, 2 of them were away running errands, leaving fewer people in the room than usual. Outside, a client was attempting to park in the lot. Instead of applying the brake, they pressed the accelerator. The car moved forward, crossed through the garden, and drove through the exterior wall of the animal hospital. There was no warning and no time for anyone inside to react. The vehicle came through the wall and into the office, scattering furniture, debris, and sections of the wall across the room. One employee, the office manager, was struck directly, thrown across the space, and ended up pinned beneath the wreckage. Within moments, the scene inside that office had gone from a normal workday to complete structural devastation. The office manager worked herself free from the debris and called 911. Other staff members moved quickly toward the damaged area to assess and assist everyone who had been inside. The 4 dogs were present throughout the incident. A mother shared footage from her home security camera after noticing something in a corner of the living room while reviewing the recording. When she zoomed in on what she spotted, it frightened her. This wasn't her first encounter with something she couldn't explain. Prior to finding this footage, she had already been documenting strange activity involving her child's toys, recording those incidents on her phone. Some who've seen the toy footage have suggested the behavior could be attributed to malfunctions. The mother's position is that the incidents have been happening repeatedly and that there is nothing mechanically wrong with the toys. She also says her children has begun interacting and playing with something that isn't visible to anyone else in the room. She had initially interpreted this as a young child's imagination at work. What the security camera captured altered that view entirely. A plate came off a shelf on its own, then something resembling a humanoid figure appeared moving in the area near her child's bed. The child wasn't in the bed at the time. The mother states her household has 1 dog and 1 cat, and both animals were visible on the couch during the recording, attributed to her. She has no explanation for what the figure was. The question that runs through all of it is the sequence. Her child had already been responding to something unseen for some period of time before the camera captured a figure near the bed. Whether those 2 things are connected or whether the child's behavior and the figure are separate and unrelated is what the footage doesn't resolve. On February 8, 2023, surveillance cameras in East Baltimore captured what began as a routine traffic stop and became a structural collapse in the middle of the street. Officers moved to pull over a stolen Hyundai that evening, with Sean Lee Brunson, 33, behind the wheel. Brunson didn't stop. He fled. Within moments, he arrived at the intersection of East North Avenue and North Wolf Street. Alfred Fincher, 54, was on foot at the same time, moving along North Avenue near the corner. He had no connection to the chase, no involvement in any of it. He was a pedestrian who happened to be at that corner when Brunson ran a red light and drove the stolen Hyundai into another vehicle in the intersection. The impact sent both cars off their course and toward the sidewalk, toward Alfred in the vacant building directly behind him. The vehicles reached Alfred before they reached the building. Then they hit the building. The structure appeared to hold for a moment after impact. Then the front of the building came down, collapsing onto the vehicles below and burying Alfred beneath the rubble. Officers and first responders were immediately in the debris, pulling away bricks and wood and working through the dust to reach whoever was under it. The scene had crossed from a traffic stop into a rescue operation in the span of seconds. Five people from the vehicles were injured and taken to hospital for treatment. Alfred Fincher could not be saved. He was recovered from the debris and pronounced dead at the scene. Because the crash had followed an attempted police stop, the Maryland Attorney General's Independent Investigations Division conducted a formal review of the incident, a confirmed step in the case's handling. The surveillance footage made Alfred's position in all of this unambiguous. He was walking through the neighborhood, not part of the chase, not involved in the vehicles, simply present on that corner when the collision redirected everything toward him. In 2024, Brunson received a sentence of 29 years, 4 months, and 24 days in prison. Charges included vehicular manslaughter, theft, and driving without a license. Alfred Fincher was struck by the vehicles and then buried when the building behind him fell. The crash was the first event. The collapse was the second. Both happened within seconds of each other, in the same space, and Alfred Fincher was at the center of both. A video posted to Instagram in August 2025 reportedly came from a security camera in a village in Brazil. At around 11 p.m., a man near his house began hearing strange noises outside. He went out to look for the source and found nothing. He then checked the security camera footage to see if it had picked up what he had heard. What he found on the recording was difficult to account for. A small glowing object appeared in the footage, moving slowly. Seconds later, 3 luminous objects appeared on the road, resembling transparent creatures floating through the air. They drifted for a moment before gradually fading out until they had completely disappeared from the frame. The man's view is that what appeared was not natural and may be connected to something paranormal. The question the footage raises is specific to those 3 objects. They appeared together, moved together, and faded together. Whether something that behaves with that kind of coordination has a natural explanation the recording doesn't show is what the footage leaves open. On October 15, 2019, security cameras at Pueyrredón station in Buenos Aires, Argentina, captured an accident on a crowded subway platform during the morning commute. Passengers were standing close together near the edge, waiting as a train approached. Nothing about the scene suggested anything was about to go wrong. Then, in the middle of the platform, a man lost consciousness and collapsed forward. As he went down, he collided with a woman standing near the edge of the platform. She had no time to move. One moment she was waiting alongside everyone else, the next, the impact knocked her over the edge and she fell onto the tracks below. What followed happened fast. Bystanders on the tracks worked to lift her back up while people above reached down and pulled her onto the platform. The man who had fainted was also helped to his feet by those nearby. The train driver managed to stop before reaching her. She survived. There was no confrontation involved, no attacker, no dispute of any kind. A man lost consciousness at the wrong moment next to someone standing inches from the edge, and the result was a woman on the tracks in the path of an oncoming train. What makes the footage particularly striking isn't the accident itself, it's the response. The people on that platform didn't hesitate. The moment she went over, strangers were already moving. There was no waiting, no standing back, just an immediate coordinated effort from people who had seconds to act and used all of them. Akina documents her daily life on her account and has been capturing moments with her child Bango since he was born. On January 29, 2024 at around 2:30 a.m., she was asleep beside her child when something woke her up. The bedroom door began opening and closing by itself, but Akina later identified something in the footage that was more unsettling than the door movement. When the door opened, she could see a figure standing in the doorway that looked exactly like her husband. Her husband was still at work and hadn't come home. She looked at the figure and got up to go toward it. The sound of the main doorbell is audible in the recording at the moment the door opened. According to Akina, the figure turned and started walking away. She followed it, then something stopped her. Akina froze. The door started moving on its own again. When she went downstairs, the door was fully closed. No one was there. That was the moment she understood the figure hadn't been her husband. She ran back to the bedroom screaming and called him immediately. He came home about an hour later. The doorbell sound is a detail that sits at the center of this footage. It rang as the door opened at 2:30 in the morning while her husband was still at work. Whatever rang it and whatever was standing in that doorway is the question the recording raises and doesn't answer. This happened on July 19th, 2022. Cameras on a highway in Zibo, China captured traffic moving at a normal speed before the situation changed entirely. A red box truck came into frame and started drifting toward the right side of the road. Then the driver made a sharp correction to the left. The force of that movement was more than the truck could handle. It went onto its side and slid across several lanes. That alone would have been a serious incident. Then it exploded. A massive fireball spread across multiple lanes of the highway simultaneously, forcing surrounding vehicles to brake hard and stop where they were. Flames and thick black smoke covered the road in seconds. Debris went in every direction. A tire from the wreckage traveled across the highway and came close to striking another car that was still moving through the area. One vehicle near the center of the blast was completely swallowed by the fire and smoke, making it impossible from the footage alone to know immediately what had happened to whoever was inside it. Fire and rescue crews arrived and worked to bring the blaze under control. According to reports, the cargo in the truck at the time of the crash included plastic pellets and bleach, both substances attributed to those reports. The truck and at least one other vehicle sustained severe fire damage. According to local reports, both drivers managed to get out. What the footage captures is how completely a highway can change in a matter of seconds. Normal traffic, a drift, a correction, a rollover, and then a fireball that covered the road before anyone around it had time to process what had just happened. In August 2025, security camera footage from inside a motorcycle dealership in Thailand captured something that employees present couldn't account for. A female employee was sitting in the shop waiting for customers to come in. Everything appeared normal until something changed. The door opened on its own. The woman got up and walked toward the entrance, then began speaking, apparently addressing someone standing in the doorway. Her co-workers could see no one there. They moved toward her, attempting to communicate that she was talking to empty space. She collapsed. Afterward, the woman described what she had experienced. She clearly saw a man enter the store and approach her asking about a motorcycle, behaving like any ordinary customer, attributed to her account. The moment her co-workers came close, the man disappeared. That was when she panicked and went down, attributed to her. The question the footage raises is anchored to that gap. Her co-workers were in the same space, looking at the same entrance, and saw no one. She saw a customer clearly enough to hold a conversation with him. Two sets of people in the same room at the same moment with completely different accounts of who was standing there. On January 24th, 2006, Jennifer Kessie, 24 years old, disappeared from Orlando, Florida. What distinguishes her case from the moment it begins is who Jennifer was before she vanished. She wasn't someone who moved through daily life without thinking about risk. She carried pepper spray. When she had to cross a dark parking lot at night, she would call someone and keep them on the line until she was safely inside. The apartment complex she had selected, the Mosaic at Millennia, a gated condominium community, was a deliberate choice, made specifically because it felt more protected than other options. she had thought about her safety and acted on those thoughts in practical, specific ways. None of it was enough. Jennifer had just returned from a vacation in the Virgin Islands with her boyfriend Rob. She was in a good place, recently promoted at work, relaxed from the trip, settling back into her regular schedule. And that schedule had a pattern Rob knew well. Every morning, before she left for work, Jennifer would call or text him. He later described the routine as being as reliable as an alarm clock, attributed to Rob, because that's exactly how consistent it was. On the morning of January 24th, the call didn't come. Between 8 and 9 a.m., Rob tried reaching her multiple times. Every attempt went to voicemail. By mid-morning, Jennifer's employer had reached out to her parents. She hadn't arrived at work, and for someone with her record of reliability, that was immediately alarming. Her parents contacted the manager of the complex and asked him to check the apartment. The door was locked from outside. Inside, there was no immediate sign of disturbance. Evidence suggested she had been home that morning and had been in the process of getting ready for work. But her car was gone from the lot. Her phone, keys, purse, and personal items were all missing. At that time, the Mosaic at Millennia was partially under construction. Workers had access to move through the property, and some were staying in unoccupied units within the complex. Jennifer had told people that certain workers made her uneasy, that they would watch her, make comments, and stop what they were doing when she passed by, attributed to her prior statements to those around her. 2 days after Jennifer disappeared, police located her black 2004 Chevy Malibu at a separate apartment complex approximately 1 mile from where she had lived. A resident had seen the car described in news coverage and recognized it. Investigators obtained surveillance footage from the area and found what would become the central piece of evidence in the entire case. The camera had captured someone parking Jennifer's car and leaving on foot. The individual was clearly not Jennifer. Before exiting the vehicle, they sat inside briefly, appearing from the footage to be wiping something down or making sure nothing had been left behind. They then walked away from the car and moved along a path that took them past a row of fence posts. The surveillance system recorded a still image every few seconds rather than continuous video, and in every frame captured during the moments when that person's face would have been visible, every single one, a fence post blocked the view. Not one frame, not a few. Every frame where identification might have been possible had a fence post in exactly the right position. Investigators worked through what the footage provided. The FBI assisted in generating an estimated height based on the available imagery. The clothing visible in the recording resembled what a painter or construction worker might wear on a job site, but the footage resolution was insufficient and the face was never identified in any frame. Search dogs traced a scent from the abandoned vehicle back toward the direction of Jennifer's condominium complex. Witnesses described seeing a car matching Jennifer's leaving the parking lot that morning in a manner that suggested someone inside may have been struggling for control of the vehicle, attributed to witnesses. The car itself produced limited physical evidence. No clear blood, no DNA match that advanced the investigation. Jennifer's family sustained the effort to find answers across the years that followed. They retained private investigators, pursued records, and refused to let the case lose momentum. In 2016, Jennifer was legally declared dead. No arrest has ever been made in connection with her disappearance. She has never been found. The person recorded walking away from her car remains unidentified. The fence posts are the specific detail that defines this case as a piece of documented evidence. A camera captured the person who drove Jennifer's car to that lot and left it there. The footage exists and the individual is in it. In the frames where a face should have been visible, the frames that would have made identification possible, a fence post was there instead. In each one, at exactly the angle needed to block it. The footage came close enough to matter and not close enough to resolve anything. That gap is where the case has remained. A man from the Philippines posted this to his TikTok. He and his family were asleep late at night when their dog started barking, aggressively and without stopping, which was highly unusual behavior for the animal, according to his account. Concerned that someone might be attempting to break into the property, he pulled up the security camera footage to check the backyard. What he found on the recording frightened him.
Guys, Aji ko pala. Pinapakita ko lang sa inyo guys kung ano yung nakuha ng CCTV namin noong 2019 pa. Ayan, October 14, 2019. So, ngayon ko lang siya binidyoan or pinakita sa inyo kasi hinanap ko talaga tong video na to, yung record ng CCTV namin noon sa bahay ng parents ko. So, ayan, ipapakita ko sa inyo guys kung ano yung nakuha ng CCTV namin. Tingnan nyo guys sa 10:29:17. Okay? Tingnan nyo dito, may lalabas dito na parang usok. Tapos mabilis siyang papunta dito. Okay, wait natin mag 17. Okay, wait lang natin 17 seconds. Ayun. Okay, back natin. 17. Tingnan nyo dito. Ayun. Kita nyo? Ulitin natin. 17. Ayun, sobrang bilis niya. Tapos yung pangalawang nagpakita siya is 10:30. Ayan, tingnan nyo dito, mag-20 dyan. Tapos sa time na to, parang lumalakad na lang siya. Tingnan nyo, parang usok. Tapos, nawala siya dito. Balik natin. Ayan. Diba? Sa mga hindi pa naniniwala na may mga espiritu talaga na gumagala sa bahay natin, sa labas man o loob ng bahay. So ito na.
A white semi-transparent figure appeared in the backyard with no visible point of origin. It moved back and forth across the space, then vanished completely. The family went outside to look around and found nothing. No sign of anyone having been there. The dog appeared to be the only one in the household that had been reacting to whatever was present in that yard. The man's conclusion is that what the camera captured was a real ghost. The detail that anchors the footage is the dog. It was barking before anyone checked the cameras, before the figure was seen, before any of the family was aware of anything. Whatever caused that reaction started with the dog, and the question is what the camera picked up that explains why. A woman driving a rented car told police that another driver had forced her off the road. The camera inside the vehicle had already recorded what actually happened. The footage shows her behind the wheel in the moments before the crash, her attention clearly directed away from the road, looking downward while the car continued moving forward without any correction. Before she brought it back under control, the vehicle left the road entirely and struck a mailbox head-on. She initially held that the incident wasn't her fault. What she hadn't realized was that the rental had been recording continuously throughout the trip. The car had been rented through Turo, a peer-to-peer vehicle rental platform that operates similarly to Airbnb. According to reports, the car came equipped with both interior and exterior cameras, and the owner had disclosed their presence to her prior to the rental, attributed to her reports. Once the footage circulated widely online, she reportedly filed a lawsuit claiming the recording had been carried out illegally. The crash only resulted in contact with the mailbox, but the footage makes visible how quickly the situation could have been significantly worse. If a person, a cyclist, or another vehicle had been at that point on the road at that moment, the outcome would have been different in a way a mailbox doesn't represent. What gives the clip its particular quality is the order of events. She offered an explanation for what had happened before anyone had seen the recording. The camera had already answered the question before she had the opportunity to frame it. A man posted this to Reddit, security camera footage from inside his own home. At around 4:30 a.m., while he was watching TV, a strange noise came from the living room. Watch what the camera picked up. A handbag dropped to the floor on its own. He walked over, picked it up, and put it back. treating it as nothing worth worrying about. Then the chair began moving by itself. The man says he has been hearing unusual noises inside the house on a regular basis lately, attributed to him, and has come to believe the property may be haunted. The question the footage raises is about the sequence. The handbag fell, he picked it up and dismissed it, and then the chair moved. Whether those two events were connected or coincidental, and whether the chair moving after he'd already decided nothing was wrong changes how the handbag incident reads, is what the recording leaves open. On February 1st, 2021, security cameras in an apartment building in Canton, Massachusetts captured Sandra Burmore, 23 years old, on what would turn out to be the last afternoon of her life. The footage showed her collecting a DoorDash delivery and heading back inside her unit. Nothing about it appeared unusual. A young woman returning to her apartment on an ordinary winter evening with no visible sign that anything was wrong. 3 days later, Sandra's co-workers at Sharon's public schools became concerned when she didn't show up and wasn't responding to calls. Police conducted a welfare check, forced their way in, and found her dead. The initial ruling was suicide. Sandra's family never accepted that determination. Sandra was pregnant at the time of her death. She'd been actively purchasing baby supplies. A car seat, still in its original box, was in the apartment. Wet laundry remained in the washing machine mid-cycle. Near her body, relatives noticed a broken necklace that they said she wore every single day without exception, attributed to family. The apartment didn't present to them as the space as someone who had made a final decision. It looked like a life interrupted in the middle of something. Sandra had known MYUU Farwell for years. He was a Stoughton police officer. According to federal prosecutors, their relationship had its origins in Sandra's participation in the Stoughton Police Explorers Program, a youth program affiliated with law enforcement. Prosecutors went on to allege that Farwell exploited his position over a prolonged period to take advantage of her, attributed to prosecutors. By early 2021, Sandra was pregnant and wanted Farwell to be part of that. He had a separate life outside of their relationship. He was married, had children, and his wife was also pregnant at the time. On January 20th, less than 2 weeks before Sandra's death, one of her friends reached out to Stoughton Police Department and reported Farwell's relationship with her. According to prosecutors, Farwell learned that report had been made. From that point forward, investigators believe he had specific reason to fear what he had been doing could become exposed. Then the security footage from the evening of February 1st. Cameras at Sandra's apartment building recorded a man arriving at the building, dressed in heavy winter clothing with his face covered. Prosecutors alleged that the man was MYUU Farwell. He went inside and remained for approximately 30 minutes before leaving. Sandra was never captured alive on camera again after that point. Within hours of his departure, Farwell's wife gave birth at a hospital in Boston. For years, the death remained classified as suicide. Sandra's family kept the pressure going. They retained independent experts, directed attention toward the baby supplies and the broken necklace, and consistently pointed to what they described as Sandra's genuine excitement about becoming a mother. A former New York City medical examiner reviewed the available evidence and concluded that Sandra's death was consistent with homicide by strangulation rather than suicide, attributed to that examiner. No criminal charges were filed at that stage. Then a Boston Globe investigation renewed public and investigative attention on the case. The FBI reopened it. In August 2024, federal prosecutors arrested Farwell and formally charged him in connection with Sandra's death. According to the federal indictment, Farwell allegedly strangled Sandra and staged the scene to make it appear that she had ended her own life, the alleged motive being to prevent the exposure of his exploitation of her. Farwell has entered a not guilty plea and is awaiting trial. The security cameras at that building recorded two things on February 1st, 2021. Sandra alive and going about her day in the afternoon, and a figure arriving at the building that evening with his face obscured. What occurred inside the apartment between those two recorded moments wasn't captured on any camera. What the footage provided was a confirmed timeline, a documented sequence of who arrived and who left on the night Sandra was later found dead. That timeline, alongside everything her family had been saying from the beginning, is what the federal case is now organized around. The cameras didn't capture everything. They captured enough that the questions Sandra's family spent years trying to get answered are now formally before a court. A man who says he lives alone shared his security camera footage from inside his home. He'd been living there without issue until he started noticing upon returning from work that things had been moved from where he'd left them. He installed surveillance cameras to find out what was happening. After reviewing the recordings a few days later, he found something he couldn't explain.
Okay? Kita guys, mas nakakatakot to. Tingnan nyo yung phone niya. Di ba patay? Tapos ito, kung nakita nyo, dumaan siya dito and then umandar yung phone. Kita nyo? Umunta siya dito and then bumalik siya. Okay, balik muna natin. Then dito yung electric pa. Dadaan siya dito. Yan. Diba? Nandito siya galing. Tapos, babalik siya. Diba? Okay? Nandito siya galing. And then, pumunta siya dito. Okay? Yan yung mabuti yung phone. Yan. Yan, bumalik siya. Tapos yung phone, umaandar pa rin. Nakikita nyo? Yung mabuti.
A dark, semi-transparent figure resembling a human shape appears moving through the room. Some have suggested it could be a shadow cast by someone passing outside near the window. Looking at the footage closely, however, the figure first appeared on the right side of the room, not from the direction of the window, which points towards something inside the room rather than a shadow projected from outside. Based on visual analysis of the clip, what adds to it is the phone sitting on the couch. Each time the figure moved close to it, the phone appeared to react in an unusual way.
Ayan. Ayan, bumalik siya. Tapos yung phone, umaandar pa rin. Nakikita nyo? Yung mabuti. Diba? So, ayan siya.
The man believes what he captured is a real ghost and that the house may be haunted, attributed to him. The question the footage raises is specifically about that phone. An object reacting to proximity is a different category of event from something moving on its own. Whatever caused the phone to respond each time the figure approached and whether those two things are connected is what the recording doesn't resolve. On May 25, 2008, security cameras inside the First State Bank in Parkersburg, Iowa, recorded something that almost no indoor footage of a tornado has captured before or since. The moment an EF5 storm moved directly through the building while the cameras were still running. Parkersburg is a small community in Butler County with just over 2,000 residents. On that Sunday afternoon, a violent tornado developed to the southwest of the town and tracked toward it. The National Weather Service rated the storm EF5 after the fact, estimating wind speeds of up to 205 miles per hour, placing it in the most destructive category on the scale. Inside the bank, the early indicators were the kind of thing that might have seemed unremarkable for a few seconds. Papers shifted on their own, objects moved across desks. The lights flickered as the barometric pressure around the building dropped rapidly. Then the structure began to fail. From one camera angle, the room suddenly filled with loose papers and debris. From another, a window failed entirely and furniture was thrown across the office floor. The security cameras kept recording as walls were damaged, as desks were destroyed, and as the rotational force of the tornado worked its way through the interior of the building. One by one, the camera feeds went dark as debris overtook each one. The last images captured on each were of the same storm taking the equipment offline. Outside, the tornado cut through Parkersburg and continued into nearby New Hartford, leaving damaged and destroyed homes, businesses, schools, and neighborhoods across both communities. 9 people were killed. Dozens more were injured in the path the storm carved through Butler County. The reason the bank footage holds a specific place in how tornadoes are documented comes down to perspective. Almost every piece of tornado video exists because someone was outside, at a distance, watching the funnel move. Storm chasers filming from vehicles, residents recording the approach from yards or open roads. The cameras inside the First State Bank were positioned inside one of the buildings the storm was actively tearing apart. They recorded the office environment deteriorating in real time from the first subtle signs of pressure change to the point where the cameras themselves were destroyed by what they were recording. That's what makes the footage singular. The same storm that was being captured eventually reached the equipment capturing it. On July 17, 2026, in Dausa, India, a truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. When he woke up, an LPG tanker was directly in his path. He swerved to avoid a collision and lost control of the vehicle, nearly striking motorcyclists traveling nearby. According to reports, no one was injured. Libby Squire was 21 years old, studying philosophy at the University of Hull. Everyone who knew her described her in the same terms: bright, funny, warm, someone who stayed close to her family even while building her own life in a new city. Hull was where she had chosen to go, and by all accounts, she was doing exactly that, building something. On the night of January 31st, 2019, she went out with friends in the city. At some point during the evening, after drinking, she was turned away from a nightclub on the grounds that she was too intoxicated to be admitted. Her friends arranged a taxi and sent her home. Under almost any other set of circumstances, that would have been where the night ended, a slightly difficult ending to an ordinary evening out. Nothing more. The taxi dropped her near her address on Wellesley Avenue. She didn't go inside. CCTV picked her up wandering instead, clearly disoriented and in a vulnerable state. Over the following hour, various witnesses encountered her, sitting on the ground, crying, lying down at different points, at times declining offers of assistance from people who tried to help. That stretch of time is one of the most difficult aspects of the case to revisit because the footage and witness accounts make clear that multiple people registered that something was wrong, without any of them understanding what was actually about to happen. Then a silver Vauxhall Astra appears in the CCTV record. The car passed her on Beverly Road, pulled over nearby, and the driver watched her before getting out and approaching. Libby got into the vehicle. That is the last confirmed sighting of her alive. A witness reported hearing a scream near Oak Road playing fields around that same time frame, and CCTV placed the same car in that area both before and after. Police traced the vehicle to Paweł Relowicz, a local man. His account was that he had encountered Libby, attempted to help her, and then departed, attributed to his own stated version of events. That explanation didn't hold. The forensic evidence, his behavior patterns, and the documented timeline pointed towards something substantially different from what he described. Libby's body was recovered from the Humber estuary on March 20th, 2019. The state of her remains created some limitations around establishing every specific detail with complete forensic precision, but the evidence that existed was sufficient to connect Relowicz to her final moments and to the events that followed. In 2021, he was convicted of rape and murder and received a life sentence with a minimum of 27 years before parole eligibility. What stays with you about Libby Squire's case is how unremarkable the evening looked in its early stages. A night out, a taxi arranged by people who cared about her, a short distance from the drop-off point to her front door. Each individual element was ordinary. The sequence only became something else when a car slowed down on Beverly Road and a driver decided to stop. That single point in the timeline is where an ordinary night became something that couldn't be undone. And the CCTV that captured it shows nothing on screen that would tell you in the moment that you were watching the last confirmed image of her life. On June 7, 2025, an Orange County deputy was conducting routine patrol when he noticed a man behind a Save Discount store on North Hiawassee Road in an area that was fenced off from the public. Finding the situation suspicious, the deputy approached to find out why the man was there. The man was later identified as 24-year-old Charles St. Fleur. As the deputy made contact, St. Fleur initially climbed over the fence, appearing as though he was going to cooperate and speak with the deputy. But instead of stopping, investigators say he grabbed a bag that had been lying on the ground and suddenly took off running.
Hold on. Guys, I won. You know, bro.
The deputy immediately attempted to detain him, grabbing hold of St. Fleur before he could escape. What began as a routine field interview instantly turned into a violent struggle. According to investigators, St. Fleur fought back aggressively, repeatedly punching the deputy as the two wrestled to the ground. During the altercation, St. Fleur allegedly overpowered the deputy and forced him onto his back, where he continued striking him over and over again. Authorities say the deputy was punched at least 10 additional times in the head while lying on the ground, leaving him unable to immediately regain control of the situation.
2112.
As the fight continued, two separate objects were thrown from the area where the men were struggling. Investigators later determined both objects were firearms that landed only a short distance from the fight. Eventually, St. Fleur broke away from the deputy and began running toward the firearms that had landed nearby. That critical moment changed everything. As St. Fleur moved toward the weapons, the deputy was finally able to get back onto his feet. Believing the suspect was attempting to arm himself, the deputy fired his service weapon, striking St. Fleur before he could reach the firearms.
What are you doing? Come on. What are you doing? Oh, be careful. Alright, hold up. County 5-1. What doing, bro?
Once the threat had been stopped, responding deputies immediately transitioned from the confrontation to providing emergency medical care. Officers rendered first aid until paramedics arrived and transported St. Fleur to a nearby hospital. Authorities later reported that he survived the shooting and was listed in stable condition. The deputy, who suffered significant head injuries during the assault, was also transported to the hospital for treatment. Officials later said he was expected to recover. What began as a simple encounter with a suspicious person lasted just over a minute, but escalated into an intense fight for survival. Investigators say the deputy endured a sustained assault before making the split-second decision to use deadly force as a suspect moved toward two nearby firearms, bringing the violent encounter to an end. The CCTV footage from Stroke on 10 didn't announce itself as evidence of a murder. It just showed a young man walking out of an apartment building carrying keys that didn't belong to him. He dropped them just outside the entrance and then looked down at his own hands. There was blood on them. When neighbors found those keys on the ground and identified them as Megan Newton's, the situation shifted from confusion into something far more serious very quickly. Megan was 18 years old. She worked hard, volunteered as a youth football coach, and spent time raising money for children in her community. She had a specific plan for what came next. She wanted to be the first member of her family to attend university, with physiotherapy or sports therapy as her intended field, and the people who knew her had every reason to believe she would follow through on that. On the evening of April 19, 2019, nothing about how the night began suggested it was going to go any differently from countless other nights. She finished a shift at a fish and chip shop, met friends, and went out for the evening. She was in good spirits throughout, relaxed, happy, at one point showing off a new tattoo she had done recently. After the venues closed later that night, she ran into 19-year-old Joseph Trevor at a taxi rank. They knew each other from school, and because both of them had been involved in sport, there was already an existing level of familiarity between them. Trevor told her he wasn't in a good state and that he was anxious about going home. Megan offered to let him come back to her flat for the night. From everything that was known about her, that was exactly the kind of gesture she would make without hesitation. Someone she knew said they needed help, and she responded to that. CCTV captured them arriving at her apartment building together. Nothing about the footage gave any cause for concern. They appeared relaxed. There was no visible tension between them, no sign that anything was wrong. What happened inside that apartment was later established through forensic examination and through admissions that Trevor himself made during the investigation. The attack on Megan was prolonged and violent. The nature of her injuries made that clear without ambiguity. After leaving the flat, Trevor reportedly told people he was in contact with that he had done something bad, attributed to those reports. Police arrested him not long after he left the building. At trial, he initially advanced the suggestion that what had taken place between them had been consensual, but that account didn't survive the evidence placed in front of the court. He ultimately pleaded guilty to murder and rape and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of over 21 years. Megan Newton's case is one that doesn't leave you easily, and the reason is the way it started. Someone she recognized told her he was struggling and needed somewhere to go. She offered him her home. That moment, simple, unremarkable, the kind of thing she had probably done before, is where everything that followed began. The footage leading up to it showed nothing alarming. There was no point in the night where the danger was visible. It was invisible until it was too late for it to make any difference. Iceland has long held a reputation as one of the safest countries in the world, the kind of place where serious violent crime is so infrequent that its absence has become part of how the country understands itself. When Birna Briansdottir disappeared in January 2017, the response across Iceland reflected that. It didn't feel like a tragedy that fit into any familiar pattern. It felt like something that shouldn't have been possible there. Birna was 20 years old, living in Reykjavik and working in retail. The people close to her, friends and family, described her as funny, dependable, and full of life. She was close to her parents and consistently present for the people around her. On January 13, 2017, she went out after work, spent time with friends, and stayed out later into the evening than some of them. Nothing about the night was unusual. CCTV footage from Reykjavik's streets picked her up in the early hours of the morning walking through the city after leaving a venue. She stopped for food, she dropped some coins outside a shop and continued on her way. She appeared slightly unsteady, possibly tired, possibly something else, but she didn't look frightened. She didn't look like someone who was in danger. That footage, ordinary as it appears, is the last confirmed image of Birna alive. When she didn't appear for work and no one could reach her, the reaction in Iceland was immediate and widespread. Missing persons cases there are rare enough that her disappearance became a national conversation almost at once. Her face was on every platform. Search teams organized and went out. Updates moved across the country through social media continuously. The search yielded something significant when footwear matching what Birna had been wearing that night was found. Investigators then focused attention on a red Kia Rio connected to a Greenlandic fishing vessel called the Polar Nana. The car had been cleaned before it came to the attention of investigators, but forensic testing still found Birna's blood inside it. The case moved formally from a missing persons inquiry to a murder investigation. Thomas Muller Olsen, a crew member with a confirmed connection to the vessel, became the primary suspect. By the time investigators moved on him, the ship had already left Icelandic waters. Authorities had it turned around. Officers boarded the vessel and placed Olsen under arrest. He acknowledged that Birna had been in the car but maintained that he had dropped her off without incident. That account is attributed to him. The evidence did not support it. Birna's body was recovered near the coastline, and the investigation concluded that she had been attacked and left to die in the water. Olsen was convicted in 2017 and sentenced to 19 years in prison, which was the maximum sentence available under Icelandic law at that time. What the case left behind beyond the conviction was a shift in how a lot of people in Iceland thought about the country they lived in. The CCTV of Birna walking through Reykjavik, stopping for food, dropping coins outside a shop, continuing home, showed someone finishing an ordinary night out. Between the footage and what happened to her, the cameras captured nothing. That gap is where the case lives.
Başladım bırakıyorum ben ya 650-700 gram falan oluyor.
On July 17, 2026, in Bursa, Turkey, a truck driver lost control on a highway and crashed into the convenience store of a gas station. A customer inside the store died as a result of the impact. The driver sustained injuries, as did a store employee. According to authorities, the driver stated he lost control due to a momentary lapse of attention, attributed to authorities. Willow Hunter runs a TikTok account out of the UK. Daily vlog content, nothing unusual about it until January 23rd of this year. That day, a door in his apartment opened by itself while he was watching. He grabbed his phone and started recording. Then he did something that changed what the footage became. He spoke out loud, asking if someone was present, and then told it to open the door.
Video just before, well, I tried recording a video before, and it didn't catch it on camera, but this door just opened on its own. If there's anything or anyone in this room with me, open that door. What the fuck? What the actual f***? Right, look at that. There is definitely no one down there. Look. No one hiding behind the corner. What the fuck? See, it did it just before, and I was like, what the fuck's going on? And I just thought I'll get my camera out and see if it happens again.
The door opened. Not a slam, a slow, deliberate movement, more like a push than a draft. He walked over immediately and checked the staircase on the other side. Empty. No one there. 2 weeks passed after that with nothing to document. Then he was going through photos of his cat Corey on his computer, and something in one image stopped him.
Looking through some pictures that I took of the house on my computer again. I was trying to clear up some space, like deleting pictures and stuff. And obviously there's them 2 pictures which I showed in the previous video. The rest of them, there's nothing to show. Like I've really looked at them and I can't see anything. But I've just have a look at this. Right, so we've got Corey up there. And I remember taking that picture because Corey was peeping her head around the corner. She didn't want to come downstairs. So that's Corey there. Who the fuck is that? Look. I only have one cat. I've only got one cat, Corey. I don't have a second cat. Like, people aren't going to believe me. People are going to think I've got a second cat. But I don't, I promise.
The photo showed a cat at the top of the stairs. Corey was simultaneously visible in the living area. One cat he owns, 2 cats in the same frame at the same moment. That's a still image reviewed on a computer, a different category of evidence from footage. After that, he set up static cameras in the kitchen pointed at the hallway door, Corey in frame. The static camera recorded the door opening and closing on its own. No wind, nothing visible making contact with it. The movement was in a drift. It swung through a deliberate arc. That door has frosted glass panels, which becomes the important detail when you filmed it at night.
Right. Just want to show it happening again. So, if there's anything in this room, can you... I didn't even have to finish. I don't really need to prove that there's nothing down there. You'd hear the dog go anyway. Right, let's try again. Right, if there's anything in this room with me, or, well, yeah, if there's anything or anyone in this room right now, open the door again.
With the door closed, the frosted glass lets you see whether anyone is standing on the other side without opening it. The door opened on its own, and through the glass the other side was visibly clear. He checked the stairs. No one. He closed it and asked aloud again whether something was still there. The door opened a second time. The first time he asked, the door responded. The second time, it responded again, but with something the first event didn't have. The frosted glass confirmed the absence on the other side at the exact moment the door moved. Visual confirmation and behavioral response in the same event simultaneously. February 16th, the hallway door swung open and a skateboard leaning against the wall came down. Before the skateboard moved, Corey was already facing the door, not reacting to the sound of the fall, but oriented toward the specific location before anything physical happened there. An animal directing attention at a spot before any detectable event occurs there is registering something the camera hasn't picked up yet. The orientation came first, 6 weeks of documented events across that span, a verbal response, a photograph with 2 cats, a door on static camera, frosted glass confirming an empty other side at the moment of opening, a second verbal response, and a physical object displaced after the animal was already looking at the space it came from. The argument that this is staged content is available to anyone watching a creator who built an audience from exactly this kind of material. The documented sequence across those 6 weeks is also sitting there. The question the footage anchors to isn't really about the door, it's about Corey. The skateboard fell after he was already watching that space. Whatever he was reacting to, he registered it before the camera did.
3圈龙脊脚，然后过去了，一头边你看嘛，啷个石头垮下来，把房子一头外头的房子全部倒几灯。老头那房子都狂啊，车会热的多得很，房子有的全部起风。
On July 17, 2026, in Chongqing, China, a massive landslide sent thousands of tons of rock and soil down a hillside, burying more than 10 residential buildings. Residents had started evacuating after noticing unusual sounds coming from the hills above, but the slide came down before everyone was able to get clear. Authorities stated about 8 people have sadly passed away, and there's also 34 individuals who have been reported missing. At the security paper mill in Arata, India, the morning shift on June 22, 2023 was supposed to be a routine working day. Prius Gower, a junior technician at the facility, had been assigned to work near one of the mill's large industrial paper machines, a unit designated PM5. The machine operated through a system of powerful rollers, rotating components and mechanical couplings, engineered to pull material through the mechanism with substantial and continuous force. In the footage from that morning, Prius can be seen doing what the task required, feeding paper into the machine by hand, picking up sections and moving them toward the operating parts, repeating the same motion while the system continued running around it. Repetition is a specific hazard in this kind of work, and it's one of the less obvious ones. Each time Prius moved paper toward the machine, he was working in proximity to a mechanism strong enough to pull material in the instant it made contact. As more paper fed through the system, something appears to have wrapped or caught around him during one of those passes. The machine pulled him in. Workers nearby responded immediately and someone reached the controls and brought the machine to a stop. By the time it halted, Prius had been drawn into the coupling area of the PM5 and had sustained severe injuries to his hand and abdomen. Efforts were made to treat those injuries. They were too severe. Prius died. According to reports, workers at the mill raised significant safety concerns in the period following the incident, attributed to reports. Some employees stated that defects in the machinery had been reported prior to the accident, but had not been properly addressed. Others described an environment in which workers were sometimes pushed into performing tasks under conditions they believed were dangerous. A junior technician who spoke to reporters stated that the emergency stop button had been pressed too late to prevent the accident from occurring, attributed to that technician. In industrial settings, running heavy equipment, an emergency stop is a last available intervention between a worker and the machine. Once material or a person is caught by rotating parts, the system does not wait for anyone to process what has happened before continuing to operate. The account of the emergency button being pressed too late describes the actual margin, the gap between a response and a response that arrives in time. Those seconds were not enough. What happened to Prius Gower wasn't an isolated failure of a single machine on a single morning. It reflected a pattern that workers across industrial environments recognize when output takes priority over maintenance, when reported defects stay unaddressed, and when safety procedures get treated as friction rather than function. Risk stops registering as risk, becomes the background. Prius went to work that day as a junior technician, one task near one part of one machine, and he didn't come home. That's what the normalization of danger produces. Not a dramatic breakdown, but an ordinary morning that runs past the point where ordinary mornings are supposed to stop.
This could potentially overtake us here. This is getting a little scary.
Yeah.
Holy sh**.
Okay, yeah, this is...
Okay, y'all need to hurry up here. Like, seriously, we're encased in flames now.
You guys gotta go backwards. Go.
Hello, Jody, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you there. I'm telling them you were notching up.
Yeah, this has got to move quick here. Holy crap. Oh, that's alright. This kind of burnt off, so we'll be okay now.
Yeah, it went across. Holy shit.
Oh yeah, look over there.
We are surrounded.
You guys got a light now or what? Did you guys get that light? Oh yeah, they're clipping. Whew! That's a meat and a half, eh?
A On July 13, 2026, in Ontario, Canada, a freight train crew found themselves surrounded by a wildfire that had engulfed their locomotive, with flames advancing on both sides of the tracks. According to the railway company, the crew was safely evacuated from the situation. At a worksite in China, a forklift operator was transporting a heavy load with the forks raised significantly above the safe travel height. Carrying a load elevated beyond the recommended position shifts the machine's center of gravity forward and upward, a change that makes the forklift progressively less stable as the load height increases. At unsafe elevation, even a minor redistribution of weight is enough to initiate a forward tip. The machine's front end began going down. Workers nearby could see that something was wrong with the machine's balance before it had fully tipped. A woman standing in the immediate vicinity of the forklift moved toward it. From the footage, she appeared to be attempting to intervene, to push back against the machine or brace it before the tip completed. That movement placed her directly in the zone the forklift was coming down into. The machine came over with its full weight. She was trapped beneath it. Other workers reached her almost immediately after the forklift came to rest. She sustained fatal crushing injuries and did not survive. Her reaction was recognizably human. She saw the machine beginning to tip and moved toward it to try to help. But no person standing on the ground can physically stop a tipping forklift. The mass and momentum of the machine at that point are beyond what any manual intervention from the ground can counteract. Moving toward the machine rather than away from it put her in the position of maximum danger at precisely the moment of maximum risk. Forklift safety protocols exist to address this exact scenario. Load height during transport should be kept low to maintain stability. Overloading or raising loads beyond safe parameters changes the machine's handling characteristics and increases tip risk. The area around an operating forklift should remain clear of personnel, particularly when the machine is moving or carrying a load. When a stability problem is identified, the correct response is to move away from the machine and clear the area, not to approach it. These requirements are in place because once a forklift begins to tip, it does not provide time for people in its path to reconsider their position. Nothing about the warning signs in this footage was concealed or ambiguous. The load was raised too high, visible before the tip began. The machine was losing its balance, visible as the front end started going down. Workers were standing inside the operating zone, visible throughout. The woman who was killed saw the machine tipping and responded with the instinct to stop it. That instinct, in that location, at that moment, was what cost her life. One load elevated beyond safe limits, one loss of machine control, one person who moved toward the forklift rather than away from it. The outcome followed from each of those conditions in direct sequence. What the footage shows is not a sudden mechanical failure that gave no indication before it happened. It's a set of visible warning conditions, each one representing a point at which a different decision was possible that ran to their conclusion before anyone acted on what those conditions were communicating. I don't think luck is enough to describe what transpires here. In Brazil, a woman was feeding her horse right before a storm when lightning struck an electrified fence post near her, just missing her. I'm very happy she was okay. That could have gone horribly wrong. This happened in January 2022 at a bakery in Baku, Azerbaijan. A production shift was winding down and the machinery needed to be cleaned. At around 4 p.m., Matanat Hazanova, 51, began cleaning the interior of a large industrial dough mixer. Reaching the flour and dough residue at the bottom of the drum required her to lean over the edge and extend her arm inside it. The machine was stopped at that point, but it had not been locked out. That distinction matters in any industrial environment. A stopped machine and a safe machine are not the same thing. If another worker retains the ability to activate the power, the hazard hasn't been removed. It's been paused. While Hasanova was cleaning inside the drum, another employee approached the control panel and switched the machine on, apparently without knowing she was still inside. The mixing blade activated immediately. Hasanova was caught before she could withdraw or alert anyone nearby. Staff in the area responded, but the emergency stop came too late. She died at the scene. The investigation concentrated on two failures: the absence of communication between workers and the lack of proper lockout procedures. In facilities operating heavy machinery, lockout systems exist specifically so that a worker positioned inside a machine doesn't have to depend on a colleague noticing them before pressing a switch. That dependency is the gap the procedure is designed to close. Following the investigation, the co-worker who activated the machine was convicted of negligent homicide and sentenced to 2 years of correctional labor. The question viewers and investigators kept returning to was the same one. How could someone not have known she was there? Whether through inadequate training, poor communication, or something else, what the lockout failure established is specific. The system that should have made that question irrelevant wasn't in place. A proper lockout doesn't require one worker to notice another. It makes activation mechanically impossible until the person inside the machine has physically cleared it and restored the lock themselves. Brace yourself for this terrifying footage.
เออช่องไทยรัฐนะครับพี่เฮ้ยไฟไหม้ตรงนี้พี่เฮ้ยนิวต้องถอยออก
On July 12, 2026, a fire broke out inside a crowded pub in Bangkok, Thailand, during a live music event. Flames moved through flammable foam lining the ceiling, material used for soundproofing, and the venue was engulfed in under a minute. When the power failed, the building went completely dark. In the chaos, a significant number of patrons ran toward the back of the venue and became trapped in windowless bathrooms, unable to locate the exits. According to authorities, at least 33 people died, most from smoke inhalation, and over 70 were injured. On the afternoon of May 3, 2018, at approximately 1:41 p.m., a deputy workshop director identified as Wong arranged cleaning work on a hydrogenation reactor inside a chemical facility. The reactor had been used previously with ethanol and a chemical catalyst. That prior use meant the interior still contained residual material. The machine's appearance gave no reliable indication of the conditions inside. When the top opening of the reactor was uncovered, standard procedure required a specific first step: fill the reactor with nitrogen. Nitrogen displaces oxygen from the interior of the vessel, eliminating the atmospheric conditions under which flammable vapor can ignite. That step was not taken. Instead, Wong opened the vacuum valve 3 times. Each activation of that valve pulled fresh air into the reactor. As that air entered the space, it mixed with the ethanol vapor still present inside, producing an explosive atmosphere within the vessel. A second hazard had already been present before the air entered. The catalyst remained inside the reactor was rainy nickel, a material with the documented property of igniting on contact with air. Introducing oxygen into the vessel didn't just create a flammable mixture, it activated a catalyst capable of serving as an ignition source for that mixture. With those conditions established inside the reactor, Wong moved to the opening and began rinsing the interior, cleaning the paddles and residual catalyst from the walls. From outside the vessel, this looked like a standard cleaning task continuing as planned. Inside, air, ethanol vapor, and exposed reactive catalyst had already combined into an unstable environment. During the rinsing process, the reactor flashed. A blast came from the opening and struck Wong at close range with significant force. He was thrown back from the reactor. He later died from the injuries he sustained. Investigators determined the accident resulted from the failure to follow proper safety procedure, attributed to the investigative finding. The reactor was opened without nitrogen protection. The vacuum system was used in a way that actively introduced air into a space still containing flammable vapor and reactive catalyst. What makes the sequence particularly significant is that no single point in it was a random mechanical failure. The dangerous condition inside that reactor was constructed incrementally. The opening without nitrogen, the vacuum pulling air in, the air contacting the residual vapor, the oxygen reaching the catalyst. Each of those steps created or worsened the hazard that was already building, and the cleaning began after all of them had already occurred.
Aguas con los postes.
Olvido. On July 17, 2026, a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck the border region between Mexico and Guatemala. The shaking was felt across a significant area reaching from Chiapas all the way to Mexico City and into El Salvador. No fatalities were reported in connection with the event. 2 people were injured. Thanks for watching. Stay vigilant, friends.